take me inside your mind when you're faced with a tough season or moment.
Ooh. I think, look, I've had a tough season, I think, in the last year and a half that I haven't shared too much about, actually, unless you've been really close to me. You probably wouldn't even know, but like the last year and a half, I've had to go see a psychologist. I felt like I'd been suffering from functional depression, and essentially what that is showing up every single day, but just being incredibly, I felt sadness, loneliness, just felt really, really dark. And I just reminded myself that this is just a moment in time. Like, I think the thing that helped me move through it, and I say move through it versus just get through it, is because the language that I chose would obviously determine like what my experience would be. And in so many ways, I had to let myself feel everything that I was going to feel so that I could learn everything that I needed to learn. And, I had to reach out for help because I felt I came to this moment where I was like, I just actually can't do this on my own. And that's okay. And I didn't want to rely on friends and family because I didn't want to burden them either. So it felt like the best thing to do was to reach out to someone else and share what I need to share without knowing that they're not going to carry this around with them. Like after the session, they're going to be like, okay, I did the best I could for Hattie in front of me and I can go about my merry day. But the thing that I kept going back to was, what can I learn about myself? What am I noticing in this moment? This is just a moment in time. It's not going to be forever. And what kind of help do I feel like I need to help me through this? And so even through dark times, it's really easy to kind of try and move away from all the feelings, but we can't have, I often talk about life being a series of lessons and experiences. Really hard lessons, really hard experiences, really amazing lessons, really amazing experiences. And being out of the other side, which I feel like I am now, this present moment experience feels lovely. And it makes me reflect on, sometimes we have to go through these hard times, or these hard times help us realize that when things are good, and they don't have to be great, but when things are good or steadier, just how nice that can be. And then what can we do in that moment? So I think the biggest thing is never giving up and also not using words like I should be, why haven't I, why can't I, which is just this really unrelenting expectation that in that moment is not going to help, versus asking, what might I need in this moment, or how can I help myself, or what am I learning? And it just brings a bit of curiosity and just rather than judging ourselves in that moment because we're not XYZ, actually asking ourselves, like, what do we actually need? And sometimes we don't have the answer, and that's also okay, but that can also be scary. And sometimes too many opinions is not the right thing either, which is why sometimes the best thing is actually to ask for help with someone that is just there to purely help you. And like I said, they're not going to carry your stuff around for the rest of the day, which our partners will, our parents will, our intimate friends will.
So. Yeah, how did that feel asking for help at first? Did you hold back?
I think the thing I noticed most was I have high judgment, or parts of me that judge psychologists. I've worked with many psychologists over the course of my life. And I noticed that I can be really judgmental on them in the way that I'm like, are you the right person to tell me what to do, or not even tell me what to do, because I don't like being told what to do unless I've asked for help. But, do I trust you that you are going to be the right person to listen to me and give me advice, or are you going to ask me the right questions? And so finding a good psychologist is like finding a good GP or a good coach. It is really hard. And I notice I'm quite judgmental on tone of voice. I really notice what type of questions they're asking me. Is that the right question? Are you giving me your opinion? Are you giving me your bias? Because I'm not here for your bias. I'm here for you to just ask me questions. So I think because I've been through this game so many times in the past, there was a hesitancy of how do I find the right one? But I'm also, as soon as I asked for help, I felt this sense of I don't have to hold all of this anymore. I don't have to try and keep this in. And when someone asks me, I'm okay, like, be like, well, if I say I'm good, I'm actually lying to you. And that also doesn't feel good, but I don't want to tell you how I feel because I don't want to tell you how I feel. So I just noticed this really big, heavy bag kind of just dropped by my side. I still have it, but I didn't have to hold it like I was before. So if anyone is struggling at all, I do invite you to look into working with someone who can just be there as a space, someone to help you ask questions, someone just to be there that's not going to give you an opinion or, like I said, carry it around like our friends will, because they love us so much, So
Yeah, it's hard as well because you need to figure things out for yourself a lot of the time. And if you have all different opinions, you start to think, oh, maybe that is actually how I feel, or maybe I should do that, when you have to figure that out for yourself a lot of the time. But it's very mature to go and get the help and like ask for it, because so many people just are like, no, I don't need it. I don't want it. I'll figure it out on my own. But has that changed over the years, the way you handle those hard seasons and being able to ask for help?
I feel like majority of my hard seasons, I've just moved through it myself. Just because I felt like that was what I needed to do. I didn't really want someone else's opinion. And so that meant that I had to just sit with myself and, as I said, let myself feel everything that I need to feel, even if I was crying, every single day. And if you looked at my social media over the last year and a half, you wouldn't really have much of an idea that I was that way. And that was because my mum said, no matter what you do, just keep showing up. So it was like, right, no matter what you do, just keep showing up, no matter how, just no matter what I was feeling, because at the end of the day, it was like, it's also not anyone else's business, but there is business to be done, and I didn't want to let anyone down. So it was this interesting thing to move through, whereas in the past, I remember I was having a really hard time. My relationship of 9 years to my partner, plus he was my business partner, plus he was with my best friend. I had a really hard time for a good 6 months, and I had to do group coaching calls, and I had been bawling my eyes out, and I used to sit in the sun and put sunnies on and do the call and pretend that I'm just sitting in the sun with my sunnies on, but really I had purple eyes from crying so much. But I had to show up, and I was also so grateful, because for those 2 hours that I had to do back-to-back coaching calls, or 3 hours, whatever it was the only time that I didn't think about how sad I was. And so I was really grateful for work. And even still, in this year, it's like I'm so grateful for work, because being in front of someone else where it's not about me, it's about the people I'm serving, it detached me from the sadness I was feeling in those moments. So I'm really grateful for work, and I'm really grateful that I had to show up, because if I didn't, it probably would have been a lot harder.
How do you balance the push and the pull then with giving to work, but then also giving yourself time and space to heal and feel the emotions?
I write a lot. I find writing really useful, and I almost write better when I'm really sad because I'm feeling so many emotions. And something that I do is I get up really early, and that's my me time, and that's the time that I, use to write, or to move, or to walk, or to just sit in silence, or to be with Coben. And I think, honestly, like I said, I think one of the best things and the greatest gifts that we get to do within this work is to serve others. And it does remove you from your own internal world, because we're not there to just talk about ourselves to our clients. We're there to help our clients. So I think as long as I set myself up in the day, and I often say, like, that's my me time. In my Google Calendar, it says Hattie time. And that is for me, for me and the dog and, Coben, that time that is just us, where I don't answer questions. I don't go onto Instagram. I don't message clients. Like, that's really sacred. If I didn't have that spot, then this push and pull, it'd be too much pulling to others and not enough pushing for myself. And now that I've gone into comp prep, I've really noticed that I'm like, this is the cap of my workload, and I don't want to do any more than that, because I really want to give this effort, space and time, and I don't want to be rushing from one thing to the next and have these frantic days. I really want to enjoy myself through this prep. So therefore, I've got I'm really adamant on my boundaries around how much work I will give and in what time and what space, and I won't do any more than that. And I really actually appreciate that part of me, that advocate part that's like, no, that's enough. I don't care if more people need something from me. This other thing is important here. And because previously when I had my old business, I was cruising, Morgan. Like I did a couple of calls a week. I wrote some programs. I did some check-ins. And so being an athlete was really easy. And we'd set the business up to be that. Now that I essentially have two businesses, and then you've got social media, which is its own business in itself, my God, being an athlete is harder. And I take my hat off to single mums or single dads, people that are just working, 2 or 3 jobs or studying and working, and a mum. Like I've really got it easy compared to other people. But I also notice, wow, I really had it easy back then. No wonder I was such a great athlete. I could train for 3 hours and it didn't matter. Whereas now it's like I've got 90 minutes to get in and out. Then I've got to wake up at 5 a.m. to get the cardio done. And I'm also really grateful we've got a bike downstairs because I just get up, roll out of bed, go down on the bike, get the bike done, get the dog and the boyfriend up, and then we go out. So I think it's really important as human beings to practice, when to push, when to pull back, but also like how much time do we give to each thing, because we all have many priorities. And I often talk about periodizing priorities, the same that we periodize training, because not one program can do everything. And we can have it all, but not at once. And so as long as you start to work out what the minimum effective dose for all the different priorities are, knowing that maybe day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, they might shift, you can kind of do it all. You can kind of be a jack of all trades, but you'll probably be a master at none.
That is absolutely true. Do you struggle with the negative self-talk around like not doing enough? I know that I will see someone working, like they'll say they worked all day, and then I have those clear boundaries as well where this is my work, this is my play, this is my like training time. But sometimes I think, should I be doing as much as them? And then I listen to it and then I start to burn myself out. Is that something that you deal with?
There were definitely times last year and beginning of this year where I was like, I don't want to work this much. And I noticed that my training kind of got pushed to the side, and I've never, being an athlete and a coach, but like mostly like being an athlete took such a high priority for me. It was like everything came after that. When I was driving to the gym and someone was calling me for work, oh no, this is my preparation time. I'm not talking to you right now. You can wait, kind of thing. Whereas now, growing a business, like which requires way more effort and time and everything else, building it and making sure it's in a great position takes more time. I really noticed that the priority shifted and I didn't like it so much. And I was like, oh, do I want to work this much? And I said to Coben, oh, baby, I'm tired. I don't want to work this much anymore. I want to retire. You can be the breadwinner. And he looked at me and he said, piss off, bitch. You're coming. I'm dragging you through this hustle. And I thought, yeah, no, I'm just having a moment. But I do sometimes look at, sometimes I look at Coben and he stays up way later than me doing, some of the back end stuff of business, or he has an idea and he creates this thing and I just am so inspired and in awe of him. And I'm like, oh, am I doing enough for the business? But the truth is, especially when you have partnerships in business, there are times where someone handles more load and someone doesn't. And it becomes this, it should be in any relationship, an ebb and flow of sometimes we give a little more and someone takes a little, or gives more and takes a little, and it should be this ebb and flow. But I notice that I can feel a sense of guilt if I'm like, is he doing more work than I am? I should be doing more work, or, and so, but that's what's beautiful because it means that you care. But more work unproductively is not better. Busy is not better unless it's productivity. And so I know even now I could totally improve my organization. And one thing I love about prep is I'm like, oh, if I want to do all these things and I want to honor my boundaries, but I still need to get everything done because I don't like letting people down, including myself, that I have this really strong organization part that swoops in and is like, well, if you want to do it all, then this is how it has to be done. And so, but I think like you, it's like sometimes I'm like, am I doing enough? I see people with these amazing videos and this crazy content on Instagram. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Am I shit? Like, am I not, I'm not good enough. And so when someone says, oh, you know, you're doing a great job, I'm like, am I? Because compared to everyone else, I feel like I'm doing a shit job. So I think we have this, you know, it's so easy to compare to others. And the thing is we compare ourselves to a slice of apple, like one slice of the apple, not the whole thing, you know, and it's so easy to do that. But we actually don't even know if that person's happy. But there are times where happiness isn't at the forefront. It's getting the job done, which requires us to pull ourselves or stretch ourselves a little bit more, knowing that it's not forever. And everyone can push when there's an end date. Think about a competition prep. We can all push because we know that on this day it's ending. And I think we kind of need those things when it comes to whether you're building a business or working on something that's, you know, going to create a lot of energy from you and time is when there's an end date, we can do it, but there has to be an end date. It can't then be pushed to the next thing and the next thing because that's where we get that burnout. So if it's a kind of like never-ending goal, then all you do is spin your wheels.
Literally. I always think of the quote, you want the life but not the lifestyle. And I think of people that I compare to and I look at their business and I'm like, oh, I want their business. But then I'm like, do I want their lifestyle? Could I have their lifestyle? And a lot of time it's no. I don't want to work that much. I wouldn't, like, definitely wouldn't be able to work that much in prep. Bodybuilding's my priority. So then why am I then wishing for the cars that the people that don't have bodybuilding to worry about drive?
Morgan, I had a chuckle to myself the other night. I had to get up and finish my steps and I was like, I'm so fucking tired. And I was just like, oh my God, like this prep, I don't know why I had this moment because I've been doing it for 15 years, but I was like, God, this takes up a lot of time. And it's seasons, right? So I think about this and I'm like, this, you know, the next season is going to be for business. But just for this moment, for the next 12 weeks, this is going to have a really high priority. And then, you know, you'll have a time in your life where you're like, you know what? The athlete part of me, she can just do the bare minimum. She can just tick the boxes, still know I'm moving in the right direction, but I really want to go all in my business or I really want to go in my podcast. And then you shift those priorities. You don't drop it, but you're just going to periodize it in a different way. And I think that's how we should always roll things. But because we have discipline, we can let discipline leak into all areas, but you can't give 100% here and 100% here. The pie chart doesn't allow for that. So we give, you know, the 45% here and the 25 there and the 35 there and the 10% there, knowing that as long as we're consistently doing something in each of those pie charts, then we're actually still moving the needle.
Can you explain more about that periodization mindset? I like that.
Yeah. So, you know, the saying we can have it all but not at once, that kind of stems true for a lot of people. If we think about the things we want to achieve, if we ever do goal setting, we're never just doing one goal. And people often set up their goals as personal, maybe financial, travel and adventure, and relational, right? So we might notice that if we get into a new relationship and we've just come off from being single and we've had all the time in the world to train and do X, Y, Z, and then we start seeing someone, where does our time go? We start to shift and prioritize our time into cultivating this relationship that we want to make last. And then we start to drop some of the other things that might be nutrition because you go out to eat more, you might start drinking, whatever it is. And then you might notice you still train, but it's not the same. Or you still might track your macros, but you're really flexible. And so that's fine because once you establish the relationship and things are really good and steady, you can go back into prioritizing your nutrition a little bit more. You probably won't eat out as much. You might set some other goals for a fat loss goal for, you know, you put on a little bit of weight. So you go like, you know what, I'm going to dial in on nutrition. And so, you know, if we look at that as like a, you know, different priorities, initially it was selfish priorities of looking my best, you know, going fishing, caught a fish. Now I'm going to, you know, work on the fish and cultivate that relationship there, and everything else has kind of fallen to the wayside. It might be business. A lot of people, when they're like really in business, they avoid getting into new relationships because they know that that's going to take up their time. They know as soon as they find someone, well, guess where their energy goes, their thoughts go. It goes to that person versus all the energy that they were giving on their business. But they're not going to drop the business, but they're just going to notice there's a bit of, oh, bit of extra time that's going over here. So it's about looking at your priorities and your seasons, what's most important to you for the next 3 months, and that gets the forefront of the organization. If we look at how we go into a training block, what gets done at the beginning of the session, what gets done at the beginning of the week always has the highest priority, right? Mm-hmm. Gets the greatest demand, it has the most energy. That's going to be the same when we have new goals that we're setting, whether it be through fat loss, building muscle, career, the podcast. You put that in your diary, you bank it up, you get all your people ready to be on there. And it's like, that was the priority. That's the thing that's most important. Something comes up, no, I can't. I've got the podcast. So you just notice the demand and the motivation or the purpose goes zooming into the things that feel like they're the highest priority. And then you work out like what's the minimum effective dose for your training. It's like, okay, well, I might only 4 days a week. That sounds pretty good right now. I used to do 5, but you know what? I'm going to give that 5th day to the podcast. And so you start to look at your priorities or things that are important to you, and you go, well, what is the highest priority and where do I put that time, and what's my organization in my week to prioritize that thing that needs to be done? Or when it comes to changing your composition, okay, we need meal prep, we need shopping, we need pre-planning meals. Is it a meal plan to, make things easy? Is it macros because you like flexibility? It's looking at all the things that are required to meet the demand of the priority. And then once you've hit that, you might want to still maintain a level of that thing, but you give energy to the next thing that wants to come up, which is, okay, you've been neglecting your relationship a little bit. Let's add in the date night or whatever it is. It's like, oh, I've been pushing really hard at the gym. Now I need a little bit more mobility. So I look at the ratio of your training program, and it's like, well, now I've got to add mobility in because I've built the muscle, I've built the strength that I want to be at, and now I'm just going to maintain it. So that's kind of like a few ways of looking at that.
Yeah. I love that so much because I personally, at the start of the year, struggled because I was in prep and then wasn't in prep, couldn't compete. So then I had this big shift, and I kind of went through that of like, I'm going to do the minimum effective dose for bodybuilding and keep going through, because I know it'll always run in the background.
Yeah.
And it's not hard for me. But I put all of my focus into kind of like the podcast and business now and my personal brand. And I went through just a really rocky identity shift of like, I'm not just Morgan the bodybuilder. And that was so scary and weird. And I was like, well, can I be a bodybuilder and a podcaster? Like, that's like 2 things. And Callum was like, you can be anything you want to be.
Whatever you want, baby.
Yeah, you can be
You're a star.
Literally. He's like, yeah, but I like the fact that you do everything. And I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't in my brain grasp the fact that I could be more than just the bodybuilder and that was it. And I really like that concept of like, yeah, you put those things into other areas because I think that kind of keeps your identity filled.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of identities. And it's interesting which ones we wear like a badge of honor. Often I'm a bodybuilder, or I'm healthy, or I'm just like, when we exercise discipline, it's like we'll say to ourselves, like, I'm so disciplined. Or people are like, you're so disciplined. You're like, yeah. And, we're not always disciplined. We have moments of flexibility. But it's interesting to notice like, yeah, as I had that really strongly when I hurt my back and I couldn't squat and deadlift. Like, actually, I don't really have a big identity to bodybuilding because I'm like, yeah, I do bodybuilding. I never say I'm a bodybuilder. I say, yeah, I do bodybuilding. But I noticed a bigger shift in identity that I really struggled with when I hurt my back. And people would say, you're so strong. I was like, no, I was strong. I'm not strong anymore. And it really actually hurt. And I noticed, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm actually hurting myself the way I say this. And using the words like I used to was really damaging for me. I used to be strong. It was like what's the word? I was really condescending to myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I used to, and then I noticed like clients say it or people say it, and it's like, oh yeah, I used to be healthier. I used to be strong and I used to be fit. And you hear like often like, older ladies be like, oh, I used to be like this. And they almost feel so guilty that they're not anymore. And I was like, I'm not this person anymore that everyone thinks I am. And then I'm like, is that really true? Is that really true? And I had to go through this internal dialogue of like, hold on, like, is that really true? Maybe you're not strong at that range now because you're not practicing it. Hello, it's like we get good at what we practice, but that doesn't not mean I'm strong, because strength isn't just physical, it's mental. And yes, I'm exercising strength in other areas. So it's just a really interesting identity. And I love that you shared, you had your own thing around, can I be a bodybuilder and a podcast? It's like, yeah, we can be so many things. In fact, we should be so many things. So I'm so glad you had that own experience. And now, because look at you, you're doing such a good job here.
Yeah. And I've really like entered into my I don't know, I just feel more confident in myself, and it's showing, and people are noticing like, oh, we're seeing so much more of you. And I like that, because I think maybe I'm realizing before I felt almost a little bit fake and a little bit
one-dimensional.
Yes. And I felt like people only liked me. I literally said to Callum one day, if I don't compete, like if we stopped competing now, would I just be like some washed up bodybuilder and everyone would forget about? And Callum was like, what the, like people don't just think of you as like you're just a bodybuilder, but I genuinely thought.
That's because you thought of yourself as just a bodybuilder.
And I thought I'd be nothing and nobody, and I'd just like wither away if I didn't ever compete ever again, which is I'm learning now, and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, it's so good to have so much more. It's great.
I remember we had a conversation, and it was just after you had done your workshop, and I said, oh my God, Morgan. I was like, oh my God, I take my hat off to you. Like I get so nervous, and you were like, I thrive in front of people. And I walked away and I was like, I wish I was like that. I was like, oh my God, I wish I had that same confidence. I would put on so many things, but I have, my own limiting self-beliefs around things, and there's so many things I don't do because I'm so scared I'm not good enough, or I just get so much fear in front of people. But I was like in awe. I was like, I wouldn't have known that about you. And it's so great that you're doing that, because as you said, people are seeing so many different dimensions of you, because you're not one dimensional. You're so many dimensions. And I think that's the beautiful thing about whether you do podcasts, and even, I think about this all the time. It's like people demand authenticity from people, but then if you're authentic and they don't like it, they shit on you. And you're like, you're asking for authenticity and I'm giving it to you and you don't like it. So here it is. But the truth is, people aren't going to we're never going to be able to be everyone's cup of tea, but we just talk to the people whose tea we are, and so they're the only cups that you can fill. So it's so great because you have so much more than just being a bodybuilder, and I think bodybuilding teaches us a lot. If you're a really good bodybuilder, you bet you have incredible qualities about yourself that most people don't, because not everyone can do this. And anyone can do it, but not everyone can do it well.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny, at that workshop, actually, after speaking to you, that was my realization moment that I can do more. And I went home that day and started brainstorming names for the podcast, because I was like, I love speaking in front of people. Like people, I've got something to say. And it was really epic, but it was cool. Why is the way we speak to ourselves so important?
Great question. You probably heard me say it before, but language is a weapon of love or destruction. And if we think about, the words that people use towards us, we pick up, not just tonality. 80% of communication is body language. It's not just words. But the words that we use, they have meaning, right? The words we use, the stories we tell, they create an experience. And so it's really important that we tune into the language that we use towards ourselves and the language that we use towards others. An example of that is when we're having a hard time and we say, I should be doing this. I need to. You might think, yeah, that's the right thing to say. I need to. I'm going to reprimand myself to go do the thing, or I should be doing it. Yeah, you should know better. Yeah, go. But we notice that actually doesn't take action. That actually, it's like being in trouble from your parents and you go, oh, I'm really sorry, I won't do it again. But then you go do it again because we have rebelling parts and we actually haven't told ourselves how to not do it and to do something differently. And so when we use certain language, we actually drive up different parts of the nervous system. When we have really sharp language, we drive up fight parts in the system and they want to just go do something. They don't always think about what is the best way of doing it. This is why we talk about consistency, moving the needle versus perfectionism, because perfectionism is a standard that we don't always reach. And if we have these high-achieving parts that say that, well, that's not good enough, then we just feel like we're always telling ourselves that we're just not good enough. But it's not that we're not good enough. It's just that the system that we're using isn't very useful. And so rather than saying I should, say, what can I do to be able to do this thing? You know, when people try and cut out food, rather than saying I can't have that, say I can if I want. Yeah, if I would like to have some chocolate, I can have some. And then you get to be presented with a choice versus I can't have some. And while motivation's there or willpower's there, you don't. But guess what? When it's not there, you eat it and you eat it tenfold and you eat it in a way that is guilt, shame, rebelling. Don't look at me. I'm doing the bad thing. This is a little dirty secret. And then now I feel shit about myself. And so the language that we use can help us move towards something, right? It can also help us move away from something. But what we want to do is learn how to work with ourselves, because we're never the same. We're never the same person. Notice that sometimes we're high, sometimes we're low, sometimes we're steady. And so the language that we use towards ourselves is often determined by the state in which the nervous system is sitting in. Fight part, just go do it. Nike, just do it. People that love those things, yeah, that will be really motivating for them. People that have like a slower system, just go do it. That feels like too much. In the same way, when people use the word discipline, because when they're disciplined, it's all or nothing. Well, discipline doesn't feel exciting for them. It means rigidity, cutting out a lot of things, sacrifice, suffering versus this thing that we feel empowered by. You and I might look at the word discipline and be like, that's quite empowering. But for some other people, it's like, oh, I should be disciplined. Oh, I've got to start being disciplined again. And it's this thing that they're saying that they should be, but they might not want to be because it actually feels really fucking hard. It's not enjoyable for them. So that's why I love the word devotion. Devotion feels like love to me. Because if I, for my opinion on love is not just, oh, this lovely feeling like it is. But if you really love someone and they're not doing something that is right by you or right by themselves or is against the thing that they said, you hold them to that stand. You have that hard conversation. You say, hey, I love you enough to notice that this is what you're doing and this is what you've said in the past. And so you actually intercept the behavior that they're doing because you love them. And that might be really hard because you're creating a little bit of tension in the system. And that's what we do for ourselves as well. We create tension in the system when we notice, holy shit, that habit's creeping back in. Oh, I notice I'm slipping at this. I notice I'm having a few more extra spoons. Hold on. Let's do a bit of a reset. What do I want to practice? What's important to me? How can I set myself up better? Instead of you're doing that thing again. Or like to our partner, you're doing that thing. Like, yeah, it's not really useful. So the not just the language that we use, but how we say it. And I always love things like how and what versus why. Why am I doing that? Well, because I feel like I'm so emotional. I'm really tired. It's like super emotional, not useful. What do I notice about myself in this moment? I notice that I'm not being organized. I notice that I'm slipping apart. I notice that I'm really tired because and so you start what and how start conversations internally, but also externally with friends and athletes or clients versus why are you doing that thing again? It's not always useful. So the language that we use, the questions that we ask, even like certain, language around, mantras or missions or, I love Jackson Pios's The Contract is like, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that is a legal binding contract with yourself, which is so freaking important. You're signing off to that. Yeah, that means something. And that's just my interpretation of that. In the same way that devotion is like love, she's firm, but she's also soft. She's grace, she's compassion when things are hard, but she's absolutely going to get you back on the horse versus discipline, which is why didn't you do that thing? You're disciplined or you're not. It's sharp, but it's also kind of got a ceiling to it. Whereas devotion is like, how do I work with you? Or how do I love you? Or how do I get to know you? Or how do we work together for as long as I can be devoted to you? And I look at that through partnerships, friendships, work, myself.
I love that discipline and devoted sort of concept because, discipline, I mean, to me, discipline's just, I don't really think about discipline, but as soon as you said devoted, I'm like, yeah, I am devoted to myself and my health and my future, and I'm devoted to the people that I love, and I give them, I push when I need to push and I pull when I need to pull. I kind of know. And yeah, even saying like why, that's automatic. I'm like, I freeze. I'm like freezing up. Like, fuck.
Yeah. It's why can be powerful, but it's often not useful. It's like we know that we take action from emotions. Why do when people do sales calls, it's like, why do you want to do that goal? They do the tool to be emotive, but that can also work in the opposite way versus, what would you like to learn about yourself? And I really actually love that question. It's like, what am I learning through the heart? What am I learning about myself in this moment? What am I noticing? What do I feel like I need right now in this moment? And I often ask my clients, like when they're having a hard time, thank you so much for sharing that with me. What do you feel you need from me? What do you feel? What feels manageable? Do we want to try and meet in the middle? And it's like, yeah, I do want to try and meet in the middle. It's not like, I'm not doing the right thing, so therefore I'm bad. It's not that at all. It's like, actually, this season of life is just pulling a lot from me, and I would like to try and do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum is still consistency.
What's your relationship with failure then? I assume that all of this, what you've just said, it's encouraging learning from failure. If you're asking yourself what I want to learn from this moment, do you feel like failure is always an opportunity to learn?
I do. I think my relationship with failure is much healthier than what it used to be. I always ask myself, like, what can I learn? And even if I have like a moment in time where I'm like, this feels like a lot, or, I think the thing that I often say to myself more than, oh my God, I'm failing, is, am I good enough? That's kind of like, that's where I'd say the fight is often, it's not really with failing. It's because I'm like, all I'm doing is learning, but it's like, was that good enough? Could I have done better? And I can pinpoint like all the moments and where I fucked up, and I think that's kind of like that becomes like a bit of my downfall, or the thing that I often wrestle with versus failure, because I know that, I think I learned how to fail very well through training, knowing that in so many ways that brings me success. But also asking myself, well, failing is not doing anything at all versus doing the thing and learning a little bit and being like, oh, I just learned something. Okay, I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get where I wanted, but I also started, which is the hardest part, and I learned a little bit from it. And I also might have realized that that wasn't what I thought it would be, and that's totally fine, and I'll move to the next thing. But I think the biggest fight that I often have internally is they're not good enough. And it's so interesting that I still have that kind of voice within me that I haven't managed to completely shake off. I got to know it a lot better, but I still notice how sharply it can come up, mostly when I'm just really stretched and tired. I'm like, so many things on my plate. I'm like, am I showing up the best I can? But, if we look at the pie chart again, it's like I couldn't give 100% to that thing because there's all these other demands from me. So did I give the effort that was required for that thing? Did I give all of that? And that's what I can, to look to improve on, versus if I had all the time in the world to do that one thing, I probably would have done a better job. But that's not reality.
How do you wrestle the tension between like having high standards but knowing that failure is a part of growth? So I feel like I'm just, as you were speaking about that, that's sort of where I'm wrestling with, like, I need to fail, but I hold myself up to a really high, like I want to always perform at my best.
Yeah, there's two things I say around that. A high standard without self-compassion just becomes self-bullying.
That, I love that.
So I've learned to have compassion. So I still have a high standard. And I think I've said in a post before, I'm like, I can't escape the standard that I have for myself. And that can sometimes be relentless. And that can show up am I good enough? And I often have like a little bit of a breakdown before I recalibrate. I'm like, okay, that was just a moment in time. I'm back. What can I do better? And I get myself back on the horse. I'm like, let's go back to that standard, but let's do it a little bit better. And then the other piece is failure and success, they coexist. If we look at all the people that are most successful in this world, we only hear about their failures after they've been successful. But damn, they've had a lot of failures. And so that but no one gets online being like, failed at this today, I failed at, unless it's like a training session. But for the internal things around business, being like, oh, I lost $50,000 today, fired a bunch of clients, a bunch of coaches, my coaches suck, or like no one's going through that. No one's talking about that online. They talk about it later when they've nailed it. So just know that like that it is a part. You must fail forward. The only way you get better is by failing forward, because we learn more about our mistakes than we do about our success. And guess what? As soon as we're successful, we're great for a moment. And guess what? We think about the next fucking thing we got to do, the next goddamn hill to climb. And guess what? We're going to fail up that goddamn thing as well. And then we're going to get to the next hill. So it's really important I think it's really important to acknowledge small wins. I remember I heard this from Tony Robbins, and it was ultimate failure is when we never see any of our success. And I remember at that moment, that was 2016, and I just won the world titles, and I told myself I wasn't really good enough, and I was just luck that I won, and I really robbed myself from that experience. And the next year I didn't win the title, and it was like this, I was just like, oh, look what you just did to yourself. And I went to the Tony Robbins thing, and it was literally like he just handed me the shit that I just fucked up with. Like, that success that you had, you just robbed yourself. That is failure. You actually were not successful. Yeah, you got the title, but guess what you did? Told yourself you weren't good enough. That is failure. I failed at that. And what that taught me was to never be like that again. So the other years, even when I came second, I didn't tell myself I was a failure. I was like, I did the best I fucking could. I was a champion. The way I showed up morning and night, everything I did, I had a champion mindset. I am still a champion. In fact, I felt more of a champion the years that I didn't win, because I didn't need the title to tell me that I was a champion. I've been a champion. I've been been many champions, So I went through like this really shitty lesson, because if I could go back in time, of course I would have loved to have been like, yes, I get myself, but I didn't. I really robbed myself, and I did I need that lesson? Maybe. We get the lessons we need till we learn, and you bet I learned after that. So, and it's a story that I get to tell now, and to remind people of like, take the wins, take any win, even the small wins around like you noticed that you're really tired and you wanted to overeat, or you wanted to do this and you didn't, or you started tracking your nutrition after having a day where you overate. Guess what? In the past, you would have avoided that, did a binge, and the next day felt shit. But guess what you did? You tracked it, and now you made it data. Don't underestimate that win, because that is going to be the thing that's going to minimize these big binges and default patterns from showing up later. And we underestimate how much work it took to even pull the goddamn phone out and be honest with yourself.
Yeah, the small things.
Is the small things add up?
Yeah, they are the big things at the end of the day.
Subtle changes over time, they lead to the big picture. And I think people focus on the leap, not the small step.
I really resonate with that, you winning the world title and not feeling like good enough. After I won my pro card, was convinced it was a fluke, and I
I saw you when you won your pro card. You were beautiful.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There was a few, I listened to voices, right? I listened to people. There's a few little people that picked, and then I went so into that, and I was convinced. I was like, I don't know what happened. The judges just, I don't know. And then for so long I was like, it was because of my posing, and people were like, no, it's because you just won. I was like, no, it's because I was the best poser. Like, no, you literally
it's because I had a leprechaun that day, and I just so happened to have good luck.
Literally. So walk me through when you won the world champion. What was going through your mind? Did you feel at all proud?
What was interesting is I had written on my calendar world champion, and for 16 weeks, that's all I thought about. Morning and night, I would visualize myself walking on stage. I did everything that was required to be the world champion. I think what the hardest thing is that, one, she was my idol, and there was a sense of guilt that I had beaten her. And I saw her the next day, and I remember being like, I'm so sorry. Like, I was just like, oh my God. The other is I had about 1 million people, obviously from her Instagram, tell me that it was rigged and that I was not the best. And I think I was like, part of me was like, oh shit, like I'd never faced that type of stuff before.
Yes, exactly.
And then I also, I remember looking at her. I did a photo shoot the day before with her, and I was like, she's too big. And I kind of like was like, no, I think I'm gonna get this one. You're too big. She has, and as I say that, ladies, if you've ever looked up Andrea Bazier and you looked her up around 2013, no, when would it have been? Yeah, probably no, 2017, 2016, 2013, 14, 15, 16. Like this girl, she still in my eyes is one of the best. Just effortless. She would walk on that stage. I remember the first year I competed against her. I forgot what I was doing. She was unbelievable. And that year, I think she just, came in too big because they would let us know like what they didn't want us to do. They wanted me to stop squatting. I didn't stop squatting. I just didn't show it on the social media. I was like, yeah. And so I did notice, I was like, her skin quality was incredible, but she was just bigger that year. She was just bigger that year and she came out on stage and she looked like she didn't give a fuck. And if she didn't come out like that, like I talk about this all the time, if she came out on, she probably would have beat me. She was phenomenal. But that day she just wasn't, like I can sit back now and be like, no, if I recall back, she was not on. And I look at the photos and she was too thick for what they wanted. And my feedback was, next year come in a bit smaller, came in smaller, too small. So I'm never going to listen. I don't really listen to feedback anymore. I don't even ask for feedback really because I'm like, well, the next year I'm going to be against different girls with all different body shapes. And I've done the thing where I've come back smaller. And guess what? I didn't get what I wanted. So if I come in small, it means I change the way I like to train. And I'm also not going to do that because the competition day is the hobby. The training is the thing that I love. So I have this dance between building the body I want, doing the training I like, and then having to fit into a square box, which again, I choose to do this sport. So I never know how I'm going to land, to be honest. I just want to beat my previous experience of myself, which is really important. And I also want to beat the physique that I had the year before in some sort of way. And I want to beat the package and the posing. So I think, to be honest, Morgan, I'm going to share this with you. I think this is my last year of competing. I've been doing it for 15 years. And there's part of me, it's like, it's not that it doesn't excite me, but it takes up a lot of time. And where I'm at in my life, I'm like, where could I give that time that's going to give me freedom or something else somewhere else? And I'm also kind of at the cap of my category. And I don't want to move into figure because I personally don't want a bigger upper body, just for me personally, just the way I like to look. But I'm also then not allowed to grow my lower body. And the way I like to train is to grow my lower body. Like, I don't want to stop squatting. I don't want to stop doing hack squats. I don't want to stop training and doing the thing that I love. So I'm kind of at this tricky point where it's like, well, what's progress for me? And I would dance that line, and I'm unsure if I would enjoy that dance. So yeah, it's this year I think it's going to be my last year. So my motto to myself is just enjoy yourself. Enjoy the challenge, enjoy the feelings of being tired, enjoy the boundaries that I set, and enjoy myself from the moment I'm in this preparation and till I'm on stage, and really be able to look at the last year and be like, that was fun. I still love the sport. And it's almost regardless of, obviously I'd love to come home with titles for the year, but that won't be the deciding factor if I compete or not. I've kind of already decided it, and it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to spend that time somewhere else and building something beautiful and having success somewhere else.
I am so proud of you for being able to know what you want and actually listen to that and not listen to external voices or pressure or whatever, and just do what you feel is right. That's a big move.
I was like, what will I was curious around what I would be like. We talked about identities. And the thing that I notice is I say I do bodybuilding, but I don't say I'm a bodybuilder. And I think that's going to be the thing that allows me to move from the identity of the sport. Because I look at my physique, I'm like, I don't have a special structure. I'm not genetically blessed. I'm just a really fucking hard worker. And I've been consistently working really hard for a long time. And so, I look at some of the physiques coming up now and I'm like, these guys are incredible. Like, there's only so much change that I can make to myself, being 36 and staying natural. It's like, there's only so much you can make. And I've had a really good run. And I kind of would like to explore other modalities of different training modalities, like whether it be, you know, improving aerobic fitness or like speed and power, or maybe going back into strength and just doing it while I can before things just get a little too hard. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, we get into bodybuilding probably because we love to train. That's majority of I think the only way we can sustain bodybuilding. If you don't like the dieting and stuff, I feel like you can kind of push past that. But if you don't like to train, you can't be a bodybuilder. And so being able to do what you love to the max, no holding back, no fitting into a mold, just doing it, that's going to be so freeing and exciting.
Probably come out the other side a little nugget.
Epic though.
Yeah, I love training. I'll never stop training, and that's the thing I'm grateful for. It's like whether I compete or not, I'll still do the same thing. I'll still track my nutrition. You know, my vanity is still my ball and chain, you know. So, you know, and I want to look good for as long as I can. And, you know, even now as I start dieting, I look at my little face and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to, you know, it's like how many more times do I want to do this to my skin? And yeah, I think I've had a pretty good run. So
what's a mindset that's been consistent through all of your comp preps? Has there been a core belief that you've held through all the time, positive or negative?
I'm a champion. It's interesting. I tuned into how I used to speak to myself and how I speak to myself now. How I used to speak to myself was just fucking do it, fucking go, like really quite aggressive. Now it's all right. Okay, it's one more rep. Focus on the thing. It's so much more. It's like even in a hard set, it's like close your eyes. Okay, let's just feel. Let's just go. And it's this really soft but very firm voice to myself that isn't swearing. It's not punishment. It's just so fucking do it. It's not that anymore. It's so like lean in, curious. How can we do this better? Trust yourself. Like it's such a different tonality and also just different language that when I go in to do a hard thing, it really is like my own internal coaching, you know. Whereas before it was such an extreme kind of more aggressive way of speaking. And it worked. But I also recognized there was a sense of punishment to that way of speaking to myself. And if you speak to yourself that way and it doesn't feel like punishment, that's totally fine. But I notice how much more I get out of myself when it's like one rep at a time. Just give it respect. I'm a champion. Let's go. I'm a champion. I'm a champion. One rep. What does a champion do? One rep. Like it's so different now. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of embody the champion mindset as well. Like the more you speak to yourself in that way, you just show, it just shows. I think actually me and Emily were speaking to the same thing about the same thing about like coming from a place of like hatred and it like can push you so far and then that's it. I think coming from a place of like love and passion and devotion, that has just like tied the knot on that. Coming from a place of devotion is just going to take you so much further.
Well, pain is the most potent motivator that we have. And that's not bad. Like sometimes pain is the only way that makes someone take action. It's so painful to be this way, or it's so important that you make this decision or you prove to others or whatever it is. That's really powerful. But in my opinion, it becomes a ceiling. It becomes a ceiling. So I feel like love becomes the floor. Like if you look at plants, they only grow from being watered and nurtured. We're the same thing. And they wither the storms. We are no different to that. So it can start with pain. And often women don't like to use love as a motivator because they're scared they're going to be too soft on themselves. They're scared to be compassionate. They're scared to give themselves grace. They're scared to look at themselves and be like, maybe I am okay, because they think that that's going to be the thing that stops them and they're going to get lazy. That's not true. Right? But if we're only using negative self-talk to take action, guess how we speak to ourselves all the time? Negatively. How do we speak about ourselves? Negatively. And so I used to use that and I was so scared to learn compassion. I was so scared to say, oh, maybe I do like myself, because I was so scared that it would stop me from taking action. But it didn't. It actually opened me up to possibility. And I was like, holy shit, if I can love myself this much to take action on something that's important, I'm going to love myself enough to keep going and to look for better ways and to not punish and to learn to rest and to learn that play is important. and to learn to fail forward and give grace and sometimes say, that's okay. It's enough. Tomorrow we'll do this. And I feel like that's such a better way, and it minimizes that thing called burnout that a lot of women speak to, because if the only tool is do more, the only tool is do it harder, then all you're going to get is hard till you can't go anymore. And then when does it end? It doesn't. And so we go back into this vicious cycle. And that's not a way to experience yourself. So when I said to you, one of the most important things for me is to enjoy my experience of myself, that is the thing that determines whether I stop or don't. So if I'm punishing myself or I'm negatively talking to myself and just beating myself up, I say to myself, all right, well, don't do it. Don't do it. If you're going to speak to yourself like that, don't do it. And it's like, well, I don't want to not do it. And that's my rules for myself. And it's this internal conversation like, change your language or don't do it. And it's so cutthroat because I'm not going to hate myself through the process because, one, I don't teach that. And two, that's lying. And I'm not going to – what's the point of doing it if I'm just going to hate myself, if I'm going to punish myself to the end? Because even if I win, guess what? I'm going to look back and be like, well, I just fucking hated myself that whole time. And I don't feel like that's success versus loving yourself enough to know when to be soft and when to be hard, and loving yourself enough to go find joy, do the best that you can, and whatever happens on show day happens on show day. And you know you've showed up your best self. That's it. Because whether you're 1, 2, or 3, you get to decide what you take away from it. You get to decide the story.
When you look back and you've hated yourself all prep, even if you nailed everything, you won't see any of that anyway.
No, you don't see it all anyway. So even if you hit the goal, guess what you see? That you weren't good enough. What is the point of doing that? There's no point.
How did you flip that mindset? Was it gradual over lots of failing forward? Or do you think there was like one moment where you're like, I need to change the way I speak to myself?
I think losing the world titles was the big one, the big like kind of moment where I was like, let's just check yourself. And then the year before when I was doing a prep, I noticed I was being really hard. The first 6 weeks, I was just awful to myself. And I remember I was on the bike in the middle of the lounge room and I said to myself, you're in it or you're not. Like, I can't do this. I can't keep doing this to myself. And I hadn't had a prep like that for years, but I was just really hard on myself because I'd come back, I'd had a really bad back. I was like, I haven't even made any improvements. Like, am I just forcing myself to compete? Am I just doing it because I said I would? Like, and I really had to have this moment of like, why am I even doing this? What's this for? And honestly, from that moment where I decided that's not how I'm going to speak to myself, the rest of my prep was amazing. Like the whole experience of it, the way I treated myself, the way I got up, the way I organized, the way I slept, like it changed everything for me. And it always reminds me of how important the choices that we choose are and how powerful we are in these moments when we think we're powerless. Like, no, we get to decide. Like, we actually get to decide. And so I'm not saying I'm perfect. And I have I have moments where I'm like, what's going on? Who's running the show now? Like, what part of me is like really running the show? And I think, we have to self-develop. We have to self-understand before we develop. So understand ourselves, patterns, triggers, traumas, language we use, stories we tell, get to know them. And rather than say, why do I do it? Ask yourself, like, where do these come from? What do I notice? Like, how did I develop this? What do I notice about myself? What am I learning? What would I like to do better? How would I like to show up for myself? What is the greatest version of me that I say out loud? Like, who is she? Because I often ask, like, when you do like a call with a client, they're like, I want to be my greatest version of myself. I'm like, cool. What's she like? And they're like, well, she's just like, she's just like her training. And it's like, okay, you don't even know who she is. Let's get clear on her first, because otherwise you've got this illusion in your mind, but there's no way of connecting who you are now to the vision. The path to the vision is what we practice today. We don't just become that person. We practice being her. So we have to get really clear on who she is so we can practice being her now. And I had to do that for myself. And, I had to go through that moment of like just being super hard on myself to go, hold on, why are we even doing this? Like, what are you practicing right now?
Yeah.
Like, if you said everything out loud to your clients, like, if they were in this room right now, like, you're lying to them. So those moments where it's like self-leadership of like, if everyone heard what you were saying, would they call you a leader? And those moments always flip me upside down. It's like, do what you say you would do. Be who you are. Be who you say you are. And again, it's not all of me. They're just parts. We all have our own moments where we think something, we're like, and they're just parts of ourselves. And then we bring ourselves back into the room and, have a little internal conversation, bring everyone into the boardroom and rearrange who's steering the ship.
It seems like everything on the outside, people probably look at you like, wow, you're so this way, you're confident, you're always so happy, blah, blah, blah. But it seems to me now that everything you do is so intentional. Like you are in control. You know exactly the person that you want to be, just like what you were saying. And the quote that you said at Pro Camp stuck with me forever. And it's something that stuck with me, that you're not here by chance.
You're not here by chance, you're here by choice.
Yes. And that's what I think about you right now. You are not the way you are just because you are. You are the way you are because you have worked on it. And I don't know, I just feel really inspired right now thinking about that.
Thank you.
But I love that whole chance and choice thing. Where did that come from?
It was honestly the moment when I was hospitalized and I was like looking around. I'm like, oh, what the fuck have I done? Like I was like, holy shit. Like, because I went to hospital. The first day that I was there, they fed me like a proper meal, which I had not had in months. I shouldn't laugh. But, and then the next day I went to get up and I actually fell into a coma and I had to be rushed to emergency, and I woke up in emergency and I was there for a week, and then they put me back into hospital and I was kind of like, what the hell is going on? And I remember just being like, oh my God, I am not here by chance. I'm here by my choices. And that was like a really big moment of like, if I got myself here, I've got to get myself out. Like that was like this really strong advocate part that was like, what are you doing? This is not a way to live. And I often say that I have to make really big mistakes before I learn, or I have breakdowns before I have breakthroughs. And that was like a pretty big breakdown of like, holy shit. And it made me tune into like my mind. It was just like, holy shit, my mindset, like my body just did everything that my mind asked it to do. My relationship with myself, the choices that I was making, the stories I was telling, all my mindset stuff really stemmed from the moment in time of being hospitalized. So much of it came out like that. And this is why I come back to, it's like, we forget how powerful we are. Like we are where we are from the choices that we make. And they're conscious. Like you want to change your life, change your choices. And I said that with a big tone, and I don't mean to like bash it on anyone, but more from a realization of like, you don't have to be here if you don't want to be here. I'm not saying it's easy. Getting out of hospital, improving my relationship with myself, learning that weight gain was good, learning how strong this body was, learning all the lessons I have, they were not easy, but they were choices. And learning to like who you are, which is something I had to do, and going, okay, you've got to go with what you've got or don't go at all. That's Jimmy Carr's quote that I love. It's like, we have this body and we can change it to an extent, but love it to change it. Love yourself to change it. Make better choices that help you feel good. I know in the moment they feel terrible or they're challenging or it's forcing you to be uncomfortable. It is so worth it. Like it is so worth it looking at the mirror and going, God, I'm so grateful I am doing this, or I'm working on myself, or I'm being a better person for my husband or my kids or my partner, or my athletes, or the way I show up in business or the way I serve others. Like it is hard. Everything we want in life requires effort. Being miserable also requires effort. In the same way that no action is also a choice, we get to choose like where do we want to put the energy? Like you can put energy on something hard that's going to give you a reward, or you can keep feeling like shit and just feel like life is hard. Because life is hard sometimes. And actually, as I get older, I realize there is lots of hard times. Being an adult, being a child was so much easier. But we also get to decide, and we get to choose what we make everything mean. So learn about yourself so you can self-develop, and learn about yourself so you can make better choices. Because at the end of the day, you are the most powerful person in your life. We can be guided by others. We can be inspired by others. We can be motivated by others. But all of that is just entertainment if we don't take any action.
That's incredibly powerful, and I absolutely love that. It's been so interesting to hear your mindset about this, because I think, I don't know, people look at you just the way you are, and now, showing that there's so much more beneath it. You peel back the layers of the onion, and just below that, it's just, yes, choices, choices. And why do you think people self-sabotage in the first place? And why do so many people self-sabotage?
That's a great question. So self-sabotage isn't what we think it is. What it really is a reflex in the nervous system. So we often have default patterns that soothe us. We use maybe food. Some people use alcohol. People use drugs, sex, right? It's a disassociation, or it's a soothing system, whether it be validation or something like that. And so why people self-sabotage is because they do too much, too soon, for too long. All or nothing or perfectionist mindset. The body or the system, the nervous system, can only do so much of that for so long before a breaker switch kicks in. And a very good friend of mine, Michelle, she said it so perfectly. She's like, when you're younger and you had like the toaster on, the microwave going, the kettle, the iron, and everything's on at once, and then suddenly the breaker switch goes off and everything turns off, and you go, fuck, oh my God, this is so annoying. And then you turn everything off, and then you go back on and you turn the main switch on, and everything comes up, and you turn one thing on at a time. That is like our nervous system. When we just decide motivation's high, I'm going to do a 12-week challenge. Well, anyone can do all those things for 12 weeks, but they can't do it beyond that, which means as soon as the 12 weeks is over or the 8 weeks is over, self-sabotage. And this is why this all or nothing mindset that a lot of people go in is so detrimental, and it just drives up self-sabotage because it's too much too soon for too long. Versus learning how to do one thing at a time consistently over a period of time. And then once that's nailed, do the next thing. We actually can only take on like 1 or 2 habits at a time. That's it. But what we tend to do is we have this surge of motivation, which is great. We love motivation. She helps us take action. And while we're motivated, we can do it all. But as soon as motivation's down, everything else goes down, because willpower can only last for so long. Right? And some people can do things a little bit longer than others, but most people can't. And so whenever we're working on something new, periodize the habits. Do pick the lowest hanging fruit or the bang for buck. Do that consistently. Now that you have less effort in, I've got to go do the thing, or less effort in taking action on that habit, you now allow a little bit more effort for something else to come on board. And so it slow and steady does actually win the race when it comes to building your body. It's not the fastest thing quickly, because the faster you get the result, the faster you fall, the faster you self-sabotage when it's too much too soon for too long.
I guess it all just comes down to intention, choices, having a bit more control over yourself and your thoughts, and I guess overall self-compassion, really.
I think I talk about this a lot. Loving ourselves or looking after ourselves shouldn't be conditional. I'm only happy when, I only love myself when, I only like myself when. It's all conditional. Versus, how do I love myself through all conditions? So I practice loving myself in all conditions. I practice consistency of some sort in my nutrition, whether it's just tracking your protein, whether it's just getting up for the walk in the morning, whether it's just doing the journaling, whether it's getting to the gym 2 sessions out of the week instead of the 4, or instead of nothing. And so I look at, some people like self-care, getting the nails and the hair done. That to me is a chore. Self-care is honoring my sleep, getting my morning walk in with my partner and my dog, which I need for myself, looking after my nutrition, going and training hard. They are my foundations that no matter what the fuck is going on in my life, whether I'm sad, lonely, happy, joyful, they stick. Because I know no matter if I've got those happening, everything else, like, I'm solid. And so if we can look at training, nutrition, sleep as self-care versus a chore or this thing that we have to do or we need to do, right? If we have to and need to, guess what we want to do? Not do them at all when we don't feel like it, versus I get to, I choose to, when I do this thing, I'm like, this is my insurance policy. Like we look at training as an insurance policy, especially as we get older. Learning to shift the intention around, is it a chore? Is it a practice? Is it a chore? Is it self-care? That's going to change your whole experience, and it's also going to determine how important it is that you get the bare minimum done. And optimal is a luxury. So when we don't have access to optimal, we do the next best thing. And sometimes the bare minimum is all that needs to be done.
I love that. Well, Hattie, thank you so much for coming on today. You have been one of my biggest inspirations for a very, very long time. When I first started figuring out what bodybuilding was, I remember messaging you because I was going through all these weird mindset things. I remember messaging you being like, do you have any books? Do you remember? And there was I actually probably messaged you so many times because I was just in awe. But your mindset has been like a foundational mindset for me. I've learned so much from you, and I think everyone listening is going to learn a lot from today because that was really a really good conversation.
Morgan, when you say it to me, I still am like, what? Really? Me? So it's like hearing it for the first time, like every time. And I appreciate you. I feel like it's such an honor that when you asked me, I was like, oh my God, I would love to. What an honor. So I do hope everyone really enjoyed it. And it was so nice to speak to you, Morgan. And I love seeing the many sides of you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. You've probably inspired it all. But thank you for coming on, and we'll have to do another conversation. We could dive so much more into eating and everything. So I'll have to have you back on for round 2 soon.
Of course. I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll speak to you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.